You see it right. California is giving $500 free, no strings attached, on this program called the UBI, Universal Basic Income. And it derived because they doing a test because of the automated and the AI technology they thinking is going to take away jobs. They already finished the test in Finland. And so now they're moving with small steps to the United States. And, California, this mayor, black man, that's a mayor, he's going to test it for 100 citizens, get them $100, no strings attached. And just check out this whole video. Be right back.
The check is in the mail. Technology is changing the kinds and number of jobs that we have in this economy. So there's a push to give people who lose out a guaranteed minimum income. But how big would that check be, and who would it come from? Questions for Lee Cowan to answer in our cover story.
Sometimes a sign in a window can be a sign of the times. And the one emblazoned outside Cafe X in San Francisco says it all. Robotic coffee bar. Now, we've heard for years that robots are coming for our jobs, eventually. And maybe that's why no one here seemed particularly surprised at being handed their machine-made macchiato. That said, it is pretty remarkable. This one-armed barista can crank out about 120 drinks an hour, with few, if any, mistakes. If you're lucky, you might even get a wave. It's not a bad-looking future, unless you're a human barista, that is, in which case, this all might have you feeling a little insecure about your job.
The best estimate is about 30% of all jobs that people now do will be lost to technology. But most of those will be replaced by new jobs. The real problem is that the new jobs won't pay as much as the jobs that are lost.
Robert Reich was the labor secretary under President Clinton. Just like he says, even at Cafe X, there are humans being paid to work alongside technology. But a seismic shift is coming, warns Reich, that will force us to look at work in a whole new way.
Work gives structure and meaning to people's lives, and if we don't have to work, are people going to become philosophers, painters, artists? Are they going to be involved in their communities, do voluntary work, or are they just going to sit around watching television?
And we really don't know that answer, right?
We don't know.
What we do know is the income disparity in this country will likely only grow. And that has some suggesting a radical idea: universal basic income, a guaranteed wage for everyone, working or not, no strings attached.
There are all kinds of mysteries and potential flaws with regard to universal basic income, but it's inevitable. We're going to have to seriously consider universal basic income.
On the face of it, this notion of just giving people free money, it sounds pretty simple and it sounds pretty attractive.
Mm-hmm. The problem is it's not free. There are trade-offs. In order to finance something meaningful as a basic income for truly poor people would require us to find a significant amount of additional revenue. Where would we find that?
Professor Laura Tyson teaches economics at UC Berkeley and says even if every other social safety net program was cannibalized to pay for it, the math still won't add up.
Let's just take a simple example. $10,000 a year, 300 million people. That's $3 trillion.
3 trillion.
3 trillion. The budget is about 4. So that's 3/4 of the entire federal budget.
A number of places have tested the idea, on a much smaller scale, mind you. But so far, economists say none of those tests has been scientifically rigorous enough to determine much of anything. Which is why a lot of people are now looking at Stockton, California.
Growing up, my goal was to leave Stockton and never come back, actually.
There's a new mayor here, Michael Tubbs, just 26 when he was elected, having gotten the job based in part on his promise to improve the economy.
25% of our population lives in poverty, but I would argue that another 25 to 30% are just one paycheck away.
He thought, what if he could provide that one extra paycheck? A payout not generous enough to encourage people to stop working, but big enough to give some financial stability.
I'm not saying give everyone a Mercedes-Benz or give everyone a yacht or give everyone a private jet to travel to meetings to. I'm saying give everyone an income floor so that they're able to make decisions to provide for themselves and their families.
He partnered with the Economic Security Project, an organization chaired in part by Chris Hughes, one of the co-founders of Facebook, who's written extensively about the basic income idea. Starting this fall, his group will underwrite an 18-month experiment in Stockton that will give $500 a month to about 100 families and see what they do with it. Tubbs knows it's not without its risks.
It's no strings attached. You don't know and have no control over what people will do with the $500.
Luisa Castañon has a pretty good idea.
It would put a little bit of relief on our stress, you know, let us breathe a little bit. I don't even remember the last time I took my kids to the movies.
Have a good day.
She works for minimum wage at a Stockton elementary school as both crossing guard and playground monitor. She's not sure if she'll be one of the ones getting the money, but she hopes whoever does will take the experiment seriously.
Don't go blow it on something dumb. Use it to get yourself out of debt. Use it to get yourself ahead.
The plausibility of the basic income idea is still a matter of some pretty basic debate. It's a big investment with big unanswered questions. But for people like Mayor Tubbs, the economic challenges that lie ahead may be even bigger.
I want answers to these questions. I want to really be able to say, like, no, I tried this in my city and this is what happened.
Good or bad.
Good or bad.
And so this is the flip side. You know, California have started, but they've been talking about this for a few years now. You know, and so now they're beginning to try to implement it. Now, this is the side that many people don't know. They thinking about this basic income, universal basic income, and because of the disruption of the new technology, the revolution of AI and automation. That's the reason why they're thinking about this basic income. But this next section will tell you about that. Stay tuned.
So I think universal basic income is a better solution than the hodgepodge of different intrusive programs that we have now. And I say, you know, you're right. Let's make sure they can live. Let's give them universal basic income. And if they want to get a job at $3 an hour, because that's how you get experience, in Europe, in Germany, if you serve an apprenticeship, you're making $2 or $3 an hour. After 2 years, you have enough experience, you can now get a job that makes $30 an hour. So it's an education. So to me, universal basic income that's given without strings, we take the money that we're spending now, which is enough to give at least $12,000 per poor people. So you take the amount that we spend, divide it by the number of
Where are we taking that from?
Well, all of these different subsidy programs.
Oh, so all of the subsidy programs then go to...
So we including Social Security. So we eliminate all those.
Yeah.
Use that money to give everyone a universal basic income.
That we're about to go into another revolution, which is going to be a shared economy and technological revolution. And that all sort of plays into, I suppose, basic income and just the way technology is, just, you know, iPads are replacing people at McDonald's. This is just a fact.
It's interesting. So Mark Andreessen in November 2011 wrote a piece for the Wall Street Journal in which he said software eats the world. And what he meant was that software is to service jobs as robots and automation are to production. So we're used to thinking of factories as being a transformation from a bunch of people putting stuff together to machines putting stuff together. And it's more efficient, but it means there's fewer jobs. So capitalism almost always reduces jobs by increasing productivity. And so Trump was wrong in saying that we're sending jobs to China. The whole world is losing jobs to productivity, and that's good because consumer products are reduced in price, and it means that we're all wealthier. The reason that almost everyone can afford a car and a cell phone is that the price of those things has fallen so much. Problem is, until now we've said, well, there's always the service economy. People can always get service jobs. They can't, and that's being hastened by the push for increased minimum wages. So in Seattle, for example, if you have a fast food restaurant, you're probably investigating kiosks so you don't have to pay $15 an hour to have some guy who really isn't worth $15 an hour at the front desk.
Right.
So the service jobs are going to be taken over by software. The move to the sharing economy probably benefits most of us.
Yeah.
Because we can rent rather than own. Prices are going to fall dramatically. We'll need a lot less stuff.
The sharing economy, just so people, for the people that don't fully get it. So basically, that you wouldn't even have to necessarily own your car. That all of the things that we kind of have, we'd figure out better ways to use them, so you wouldn't have to fork out as much money for them in the first place. And we'd figure out, well, I'm going to use it on Tuesdays at this time, and you're going to use it then. And
well, the example,
is that the basic?
Sure.
Now, see, this universal basic income, this is what they're talking about when robots take all our jobs. There ain't gonna be no jobs. And they give it a date of 2030, but you know, that's half of that. So about 2025. And all of the big people are involved. If you look at this thing, they already launching programs and trying to give everybody 500 in certain cities right now. You know, just to test. But you know, this here is what they think. Especially, and since I live in the United States, per 100 people, it only take one robot to do that job. And so they are testing these programs in places like Hawaii. They done already passed laws to start this in Hawaii, the first state in the union. Then you'll see it later on in the video that California is going to do it next year. And so it's going to happen. But this is not, we should have been watching people when they were developing this technology, because just like they didn't want clones, they should have said, well, we don't want AI. We don't want nothing to replace us or take our jobs. But I guess we can't cry over spilled milk now, because now it's being implemented. And like I say, it's just to bring us to a one world government. But before that happened, I say that it's they're going to try to crash the economy, pop the bubble, or it's going to be some kind of war or rumors of war or some kind of disaster so that they can depopularize the world, because they say it's too many people anyway. But this is what they're saying. And it's not just him. It's Zuckerberg at Facebook. But check this out. He go again.
There will be fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better. Okay. What to do about mass unemployment? This is going to be a massive social challenge. And I think ultimately we will have to have some kind of universal basic income. I don't think we're going to have a choice.
Universal basic income.
Universal basic income. I think it's going to be necessary.
So it means that unemployed people will be paid across the globe.
Yeah.
Because there is no job, machine, robot is taking over.
That's simply and I want to be clear that these are not things that I think that I wish would happen. These are simply things that I think probably will happen. And if my assessment is correct and they probably will happen, then we need to say, what are we going to do about it? And I think some kind of a universal basic income is going to be necessary. Now, the output of goods and services will be extremely high. So with automation, there will come abundance. There will be almost everything will get very cheap. I think the biggest. I think we'll just end up doing a universal basic income. It's going to be necessary. The harder challenge, much harder challenge, is how do people then have meaning? Like a lot of people, they derive their meaning from their employment. So if you don't have, if you're not needed, if there's not a need for your labor, how do you, what's the meaning? Do you have meaning? Do you feel useless? That's a much harder problem to deal with.
You see what I'm saying? It's more than just him. It's Zuckerberg saying it. You know, it's Stuart Butterfield. It's a whole lot of they beginning to try it out in certain places. You know, they're gonna give and Europe and all that. But check this out.
I do think there's a pretty good chance we end up with a universal basic income or something like that due to automation. I'm not sure what else one would do. There's, but that's kind of, I think, what would happen. And people have time to do other things and more complex things, more interesting things, so they have more leisure time. And then we've got to figure out how we integrate with a world in the future with advanced AI. I think that's going to be one of the toughest, maybe the
technology revolution that's taking place today is sort of like the industrial revolution that took place 200 years ago.
And I'm more charismatic than Stossel 1.0.
Something like that will happen at some point. The current issue of Reason is titled Hi, Robot, and it's optimistic. It says robots come bearing coffee and sex, and we should welcome our artificial brethren. Peter Suderman covers technology for Reason, and he welcomes it. But emerging technology specialist John Havens says we should not welcome our new robot overlords. Overlords?
Humans, for instance, have finite capabilities. So for work and automation, for instance, we can only work 60, 70 hours a week. We have to make a decision. Are we going to choose human workers or machines?
Yeah, Peter, that does scare people. The robots are better now. When the Stossel 2.0 robot takes my job, I and a lot of other people will have nothing to do.
Well, I think that that's something that a lot of people worry about, but I don't think that it's something that we should be worrying about. I don't see robots as overlords. I see them as our partners, and in some cases, our tools.
But if they're taking my job, he's not my partner. Here's how the great philosophers who write The Simpsons with this issue.
These are robots. You will train them, and they will replace you. I give you permission to shake your fists in anger twice.
Replacing us with robots, it's heartless and despicable.
This will happen to plenty of people, and not all will find jobs.
This is a different era. For one thing, the GDP for the past couple of years has said that the wages are not increasing around the world. So this is something that's unique. The second thing is that
a lot of people are saying this time it's different.
It is. Well, Moore's law is this idea of accelerating returns with computer technology. So the fact that we're replacing so many jobs with machines, and then to say that, well, there'll be more jobs created. The other thing that I have to always...
NBC claims pharmacists, lawyers, drivers, astronauts, store clerks, soldiers, babysitters, sports writers.
Yeah, creative industries. The two things I always wonder are, A, who's going to pay me when my job, so when Stossel 2.0 takes over, who writes you a check? And then secondly is how do you have a sense of purpose when you don't have any more work to fill your day?
And so, it's been planted out there. They're beginning to test it now. Next year, California is going to try their little basic income. So let me know what y'all think, man. This is just some information. And please subscribe, and thank you very much. So you all tell me what y'all think. Leave y'all comments. And tell your friends that, hey, it's happening. And thank y'all for joining me. Please subscribe.